Welcome to week 7. This week we have more kind of smaller tasks that we're working on. So there's a bit of overlap that's going to be happening. So I would highly recommend previewing what we're doing for this week and then allocating your time as needed. I'll put together my recommendation here in this video for you though. What we're looking at is that we're going to be starting in with a virtual critique on your logo design project. So where you print it onto a tote bag or to the t-shirt. And with that, you're going to be giving advice. Make sure to also include a constructive criticism as well as positive feedback. It's great that everyone's giving positive feedback, but we don't want to forget that we're in class, and a part of class is, of course, learning. That's a big, huge part of it. And the only way to do that is also to have criticism that can help us improve. So things that maybe the ink isn't solid, maybe the shapes weren't there, maybe there are those islands, those floating places, and they weren't placed precisely. So make sure to also give feedback on how one can improve on the projects throughout the semester as well. So diving right in here, our first submission time is going to be Tuesday at midnight. So Tuesday at midnight, we have those virtual critiques that are due. Also to do before then is to watch the lecture on synesthesia and line. It's going to be much more heavy on the line side of this, but there's a little bit of a conversation about synesthesia in there because that's going to lead into our next bigger project. That bigger project is going to be project 4, synesthesia project. That's where we can take any sense and cross it over with a different sense. Typically, students will choose a sound. They might do 30-second segment of a song, and they will visually represent what that would look like to them. We're leaning more into abstraction here. We don't want to have anything that's representational. So thinking about using line to convey what that sound would look like. However, synesthesia is any sense. So it could be something that you taste and you're turning that into visual form. It could be something that you're touching and turning that into physical form, something that you're smelling and turning into physical form. Again, we're trying to move away from representation, meaning that if I smell an orange, I'm not then just drawing an orange. Thinking about like if that's kind of like this tangy acidic kind of smell, or if it's sweet, then maybe we have a really smooth line. If it's tangy and acidic, maybe we have a really abrupt line to work with. So thinking about that whatever your reference is for synesthesia, you're then converting it into the visual form of it in an abstract form using line. So with that, that's going to be a little bit of a bigger project. So we're going to be looking at you doing the demonstration for that, being able to watch and take in the presentation. Then you're just doing steps 1 and 2. That means your initial ideas for it. That is going to take a little bit longer than it has in the past. I want you to come up with actually 10 thumbnails this time for your potential designs for the synesthesia project. You're then going to pare that down to your top ones to work with. So that'll be steps 1 and 2. That takes us to midnight on Tuesday. Midnight on Thursday, I want you to watch our value lecture by then. We have 2 lectures this week, so double whammy for that. And then you're going to be previewing the exercise. That's going to be your value scales. Value scales, even though it's an exercise and it's going to be on a smaller scale size, don't let that deceive you. Set aside a good chunk of time for this. I mean, like a couple hours for this. So thinking about for value scales, we're going to be doing hatching, cross hatching, and stippling. That's going to take a lot of time to do, especially if you're doing it well. So make sure to set aside a lot of time. Maybe you even start on it at this point in the week. It's going to be due though on midnight on Sunday. So you'll notice midnight on Sunday, exercise 2 will be due there with the value scales. The other part that you're going to do on Thursday by midnight, in addition to watching the value lecture, is that you're going to move on to step 3 of project 4. So with the synesthesia project, that's where you're giving feedback on those initial designs, or you'll be doing those in your feedback groups like we've been doing with our other projects for the designs. So moving on from that, going into Sunday at midnight, as I mentioned before, you're going to be finishing those value scales and submitting those for exercise 2. And something that I would recommend doing, even though we're not quite there yet, is going to be studying for the midterm quiz. We will have 2 quizzes throughout the semester. This is our first of the 2. Because we're asynchronous online, it is open notes. So with that, maybe you don't need to study too much, but I would recommend if you don't have your notes together yet for the lectures, go ahead and put those together. It is going to focus on terms. So think about like terms and definitions that we've learned so far from our lectures in this class. Okay, as per usual, this video will be put right here once it's done. If you move on to our next page, you're going to have our instruction page. We have those 2 critiques this time. So we have both lectures here. Sorry, not 2 critiques, 2 lectures. So we have our 2 lectures here. That first one is going to be on line and synesthesia. That, of course, leads into our synesthesia project. Our next one will be on value, which leads into our value skills exercise. So start with the first one up here in the first half of the week, and then move into the second one in the second half of the week. As per usual, we also have links to a video that has closed captions, and then below that is just the individual slides for the lecture as well. Our next one here, as we are getting used to throughout the semester, is going to be our task. I have the same due dates here. This is really just a page that's breaking down what you're doing throughout the week, just in a little bit of a different format than that table. Okay, so looking forward to seeing you get started on project 4 with your design ideas. That's a 2-week project. So this week you're just doing up to step 3. We'll be continuing on with it next week. What we'll be doing with the remainder of time is working on exercise 2. You also those 2 lectures, so it's a bit heavier on like the watching rather than doing this week, but make sure to set aside plenty of time to do those value scales.